welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. On this podcast, Chris and I offer a spontaneous, ongoing conversation about how music is intertwined with healing and consciousness. We hope this podcast will cultivate your knowledge and curiosity, inspire your own study and practice of the musical and healing arts, and that your contribution to advancing world consciousness will be satisfying for you and transformative to those around you. Let's get started. So the idea is that consciousness is not just one way of thinking. I grew up in a pretty narrow religious way of thinking, which was an acceptable consciousness. You know, it worked within the paradigm of that religion. But the moment that you stepped outside of that, everything changed. And, you know, it kind of like, it burst your bubble a little bit. Because you got somebody poking at you saying, no, Bill, your paradigm is kind of not right in this area. And, you know, with all the wheels coming off of all the paradigms in the world right now, we need something solid to hang on to, right? And there's nothing solid to hang on to. It's fluid. So how do we ride the wave, I guess, is maybe what's the best way to ride the wave, or to at least not drown in this crazy explosion of consciousness that it is in many ways really beautiful and also very frightening for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's change, I think, is the most frightening thing. And especially, you know, it's the unknown. That's our classic fear as at least modern humans. We have maybe been conditioned, I don't know, but certainly as a whole, we're pretty terrified of change in a general sense. And I think one of the best ways that we can come back to maybe, let's say, a state of mind that can help us through this transitional period that we're definitely in right now, that is exciting and scary all at the same time. And I mean, what's like nervous, when you're feeling nervous about something, 90% of the nervousness is actually just excitement. It's just masked with a bit of insecurity.
Yeah, you notice that too, right? How close anxiety and excitement are. And you can choose to be like all scared about the roller coaster, or you can just relax into it and go with it. And the same feeling gets processed by the head brain. The same physical stimulus gets processed by the head brain, depending on how you choose to experience it. Right? You can either have fun with it, or you can be terrified out of your mind, like I was first time I ever rode a roller coaster. Like, what is this, Dad? Don't make me do this thing.
Right, and you push yourself out of your comfort zone, and maybe you in that moment are like, yeah, I'll never really ever want to do that again. That was terrifying, you know.
Right.
Or you'd be like, maybe like me, and be like, that was terrifying, and I kind of want to do it again.
Yeah, I want to do it again, like Superman at Six Flags.
100%, right? And then you do it again, and then it's a little less scary. Yeah, and you do it again, and it's a little less scary. And then you hit that threshold of now it's really not too scary. It's actually so exciting that now we're in a really like a sweet spot, you know.
Yeah,
and that's a really fun place to be, especially with something that pushes you out of your comfort zone. That can be obviously applied to anything in your life. And so back to your question, Bill, I think it's a great question, and one of the things that, for me at least, I find essential for handling the waves and handling the, let's say, like what looks like to be utter chaos on the surface, at least, I feel like really keeping your inner child and the childlike play and wonder perspective at heart to be the most important and for me, it's been the most positive way for me to navigate all the unknowns right now is to keep that childlike perspective. And so what I mean by that is, first of all, kids love change. So they're a great example of how we can totally embrace change. We just get, you know, with time and age, we get more complacent and we just get more stuck in our ways. If you want to say that, right?
Say it. We get lazy.
We get a little lazy. We also do just build up that comfort, and comfort is great, and comfort can be really debilitating too, right? Because it doesn't push us into evolving ourselves. So going back to that inner child playfulness that we can all tap into anytime, especially if you want to just get a really quick way to do it, pick up an instrument, start playing music, right? So if you can just start to get familiar with the play of life and coming back into that perspective of a child taking a gander at what's happening right now, that might be the perspective switch that could help reframe things into, okay, yeah, it's scary, and it's scary like a roller coaster. So a roller coaster is still like, I'm there with the intention of play and fun, and yeah, I'm a little freaked out about it, and come on, let's just give it a go. Let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
just ride it, see what happens. Of course,
You
this
won't know
this
until you try.
the analogy breaks down because a roller coaster, we know how it's going to end.
Yeah,
It's a giant loop, right? And in
right.
real life, consciousness is not a loop.
No, no, it's
It's more
a
of a
vortex or a
yeah, more of a
spiral.
vortex. Yeah,
Like I sometimes feel like I'm going in circles, but we never really are. We're going in a vortex, so you never really meet the same place. You're
yeah.
always evolving. Maybe if it's just small and incremental and not really noticeable, you're still there's always shifts happening. So,
Even if they're
but
tiny. I mean, we were talking about this before we hit record. You know how you take the shadow journey, the repeated ups and downs, right? And it becomes like a roller coaster. Not in the sense that you're going to get back to where you started, but in the sense that it's got its ups and downs, and you love to play with them. And part of that is fully experiencing them. It's like you cannot feel the G's at the bottom of a hill in the roller coaster. There's no way you can choose not to feel that. You got to feel that stuff. And you cannot feel the negative G's when you're in free fall, right? Or you cannot choose to not feel those. It's like you don't have a choice. Physically, you're stuck. And it's a little bit like that in the consciousness journey, too. Provided you accept it, don't fight it, you optimize your resources because you're not pushing back against gravity or something stupid. You're flowing with it. And yeah, it can feel crappy. It can be terrifying. And it can also feel very good. When you reach a destination, you realize what's happened. And it might feel very repetitive. That's my thing. It's like, I'm doing this again, dude. I've been through this one more time. Maybe something changed slightly that I didn't notice the last time around. Maybe I won't know until I've been through it a dozen times. Who cares? Let's just keep doing it. Just keep play going. And what we're talking about right here is, ironically, as I'm thinking about this, is this the creative process or not?
yeah,
This is what it is. People only
yeah.
see the tortured artist and the hit record. They don't really get the rest of the process in between, the hard work. But that's what's happening.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears, and, with great respect and compassion, because sometimes you lose the battle, right? Kurt Cobain.
How many
Amy
other
Winehouse.
artists just at the age of 27, right? The 27 Club.
Yeah.
It's so true, right? And that's a journey, and that's a path for that soul to still
Sure.
make the impact that they obviously made. And
Oh yeah, look at the music that we have, even from those short-lived. There was a marathon runner who we lost tragically that just this last week, who was poised to be the leading marathon runner in the world. And this guy was amazing, right? And he got killed in a car wreck or something. Crazy thing, all well. So he gave us a beautiful sort of invitation,
yeah,
to what's possible.
yeah.
Just the way all these, oh man, everybody at the Grammys, whether they're singing and receiving an award or not, everybody in that amazing YouTube documentary about We Are the World, how did that all come together? What magic made that happen? It's part of that crazy process of going into the pressure cooker and seeing what comes out.
And I think you have to, like, that's part of the creative process, is there's always a risk, and that's actually usually quite a high risk, I think, in like especially the very meaningful creative projects, maybe the bigger ones, let's say, for someone's personal journey. And those big projects or those bigger creative ideas, they really do take you on a complete spiritual awakening journey in a microcosm of it, like the whole in a business. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've met that talk about the entrepreneurial journey being exactly the same as a spiritual awakening journey. I mean, really one and the same. And it's almost like you can break down the creative journey, the spiritual awakening journey to it's like that hero's journey. Every single life is literally a different iteration of that hero's journey in different ways. Like, you have micro versions throughout every day of that journey. You have bigger versions within your week, your month, and then of course your life. And it's all just these bigger kind of versions of the Russian doll, like
Yeah.
in of itself, right? But it all kind of comes back to that journey, and that journey, it's almost like becoming more consciously aware of these heroes' journeys we take every single day and every single week, every single month, every like our throughout our lives, and then just recognizing them. They're all journeys. And so one day we might just wake up and we're at a particular part of that journey, and it might not feel as good. And those are the harder days, of course. But then to recognize, like, yeah, but that is also just a part of the journey. And there's importance and reason to why we feel kind of crappy right now. And every time I feel that way, as much as it might annoy the crap out of me, I have to ask, like, well, what's this teaching me? It's easy to learn from the nice feelings and that stuff. You're like, okay, I'll just do more of that because that felt great, But when it's not feeling great, oh man, I mean, that's where there's so much. The golden nuggets are in that part,
What is
right?
it? Michael Franti says about that. When the hard times come, the teacher's in the room.
Yeah, yeah,
right. It's like, yeah, I can get that. But hey, you know what? If you took the hero's journey, you did a little map of it, you would look like a wave,
yes,
right?
yep,
It would look an awful lot like a sound wave,
yes,
right? Vibration. So the hero's journey is this ultra slowed down version of a tone of some kind, right? Or
yes,
maybe
I
it is
know.
a tone, just a pretty low one.
Oh yeah, you got the up, the
Peaks
down,
and
and then
valleys.
coming back to the beginning, but obviously you're here versus here, so it's
Yeah,
you've changed, you've
you've
made
changed, and the amplitude and the what is it? The length of the frequency and the
yeah,
amplitude change. So how many times you do that in your life might be, if you could graph that or if you could somehow perform that, it would sound like you doing your hero's journey over and over, right?
wow.
Uh,
There's
right?
probably gonna become like an algorithm where you type in like your life's journey and then it creates a song
Creates a
based on.
song based on that. Well, we already have that. AI can do that right
Oh,
now.
that's so true. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that the song will be any good, but I'm sure it's possible.
Well, you can't take the human out of music, and that's the nice thing I've been hearing across the board with the AI stuff is that it still sounds like AI, and there is a missing humanness, a human element, and that is the creative sauce. Like
Yeah.
creativity is one of the defining traits of being a human being, right? And it's funny that at least until now, it's still one of the least recognized traits as a monetary commodity, as a
Oh, yes, I
finance,
see what you're saying. Right.
right? And obviously, that's a general statement. Creativity in tech or something is still recognized more, you know, generally as like, yeah, obviously we want that. But the creative pursuits, like any of the arts, right, or even honestly like architecture and things like that, I just find haven't in the past. I think we're moving into a new place where that's changing, but in the past have just not had the same credibility and value given to us by the mainstream, by society, and that's changing. And
Oh,
that's
it's
and that's
absolutely changing. Yeah.
it's changing really really quickly right now.
I've got to offer something that Dylan said about this. Turns out I have to be working on this song, but you got to serve somebody. So the name of the song is Serve Somebody. And it's, as Dylan's songs are, got a lot of verses.
Yeah,
But if you think about it, who you're serving and what's the result of that? And if your thing is technology and you're bigger, better, faster, we need that, right? It's
yeah,
great to have technology that works better than it did before. And if your thing is art, that's fine. That's great. But the thing that Dylan's pointing out is that it makes a difference who you serve. Like internally, spiritually to you as a human being, it's going to make a difference. And he's not offering judgment on this, although the choices are binary in the song. He's not offering judgment. He's just saying, you know what, you're going to have to choose and making that conscious. So after AI automates everything and all of what we need is produced for free and, down that road, what's going to be left? Creativity is going to be left
yeah.
and the human spirit. And we're going to be able to relate to each other so much more peacefully than we do now when we're all in this competitive world of trying to make the next, widget happen or the next buck happen, whatever it is. So go, Bob. Thank you for offering us this idea that we really do need to choose carefully. And it's not a right or wrong choice. I got to say that again. It's not a judgment-based choice. It's an internal choice. Like what serves you? What do your choices actually do for you? and the ones that we've been talking about here, these creative choices, those are the fun ones. Do I want to ride the loop coaster or the log ride? Right? That's the kind of choices that we should be looking at and putting value on, not, for heaven's sake, whether I need to update my cell phone again.
Right.
Why would I care if I have a more expensive, bigger, better, faster version of something that's addictive and destroys my mental health? Wait a minute, hold on.
Or it's like, can I turn that, it's like, this is the thing I think that I'm hearing as well, is how can we on a daily basis try to reroute our thought process, where it will typically go back into the old stories of, oh, this isn't good enough, or oh, this just wouldn't be accepted by the market. I couldn't make money off of doing something that I deeply love. God forbid. I how could I ever do that? And then it's like, okay, we can take that, and then now let's reframe that entire question as to, like, well, what this thing that I love right now, that I'm thinking that I'm passionate right now about, whatever this thing is, how can I take that and then serve with it? How can I be of service with this thing? Whatever that thing is, we can get way out of music right now. We can think of anything, but that thing, or maybe series of things, and then just reframe the question and be like, how can I serve? And I had to re-ask myself this question even just in the winter, because I was getting all these weird hints to start teaching music. And for me, I taught music in my 20s for a little bit. It never really stuck with me. And as a musician who went through music in very different educational routes, I didn't go through formal lessons for a long time, and then when I did, I hated them. So for me, my association with music lessons for my life, ironically, as a professional musician, have been quite negative, actually, and have been more like, ugh, boring. That's that's my association with it. I just get bored because that's just not. I don't learn music the way that the traditional methods of teaching music were conducive for. But then again, good friends and good community do these things where they ask you questions, and they, good friends of mine ask me the right questions to provoke a new way of thinking about teaching music. And I'm just using this as an example, or even recently, like, we always have to kind of rejig ourselves and reshape the way we're looking at, I think, things in our life, especially if we're looking at the creative things that we want to bring into our world, and then trying to think, I'm like, well, is that even possible? It's like, yeah, well, you can just ask that question, like, how is this creative idea that I'm thinking about right now going to serve the people that I want to serve? And that was where I came in with the lessons of, like, well, I love bringing music to people. I love seeing the faces of people when they start to play something light up, or when they start to write and create a song and start to record that song. And when I've helped my friends do that, and they come back and they're just elated that they have a thing, that tangible thing called a song, they can now play for their, whoever they want. And just like, I want that. That's great. And so then I just had to start to connect those dots with that feeling. And then how can I serve people with that feeling of that passion, that creation? So it's like a formula that maybe our wonderful audience, you guys, you can apply that, and then let us know in the comments what came out of that process. What do you want to create, and then what is that creation going to serve, or who is that creation going to serve?
I think you nailed it. You just unpacked the third way in Dylan's song. Right?
Great.
Because you can decide whether I'm going to serve, the red team or the blue team. But the next level down in the song is, you got to serve somebody. What are you going to serve? Like, what is you were just talking about, what will I bring to the table? And what are my talents? What are my gifts? And how can I do that? And oh my gosh. And that's the third way. Because there you go. It doesn't have to be red or blue. What do I bring to the table? Well, I bring green. I bring purple, and that's my passion. And, go for it, right? Yeah. Because it's no longer a binary choice. And out of that, you get the inspiration, because you're not choosing one or the other. You're doing the and, right? You're walking in the way of the and, or what the Taoists would say, you're walking in the way, because it is the way. It's not anything that you can define, except that it's uniquely yours. And your gift and your talent and all of the other amazing things that have come to you in this moment, you're uniquely qualified to bring your gift into the mix. so that it doesn't have to be one way or the other. And thank heaven the world is finding this out now.
And I love what you said about the sort of the Taoist way, right? Of the
Right.
way. And it's so true because that ancient philosophy couldn't be more, relevant right now. And that's the thing with the creative process, or any process for that matter, is you really don't know what the ending is. Like we really have no idea where this life is leading for any of us. Let's be honest.
Things get really easy when you give that up.
Oh my God.
So put you right in the moment.
And that's tough. I've struggled with that because we have these identities and our ego wants to hold on to these ideas of who we think we are supposed to be, and this and that and this and that. And, you're going to experience many ego deaths in this creative journey. And that's okay. It's beautiful. It's part of the process. And that's, I think, another, reason why it's so important to go through these creative processes and journeys with whatever the project is, whatever the creation is, music, dance, tech, whatever the heck it is because then you learn the flow of life. You learn the way in that process, because the more that you can let go of the end outcome, the with still having goals and still having an idea of where you're going, you can still understand how the flow of life is always going to take you not exactly where you think, or somewhere completely not even close to where you think. It's never going to be exactly what you think, and letting go of that and knowing that, guess what, just having a good enough idea of what that outcome you want, and then letting go of it, and then letting it become whatever it's meant to become, that's going to help you a lot in your creative journey as well. Getting out of your own way, getting out of the way of expectations, while still having a frame of structure, and still having an intention, and still having a sense of where we want to go roughly, and then letting go of that outcome. One, it's going to reduce a heck of a lot of stress and anxiety. And two, I think it's going to really help the creation flourish into perhaps its highest outcome that it could have. And I've learned this, Bill, and I'm sure you have too, with when I try to go into a creative endeavor with a lot of preconceived ideas of exactly what I want already at the end of it, it's like I'm already creating a framework where I'm going to be dragging feet and dragging things through. And there's no more, it's going to just eliminate flow altogether. Is when you want to type a perfectionist, control the situation. And you still want to have some part of that. You want to have structure of some kind, a framework perhaps. But man, when you try to micromanage all of it, then it's just you're going to create a lot of stress for yourself and everybody else involved.
You're describing that documentary on We Are the World.
Right.
Watching how they navigated through that whole thing is just beautiful, because you've got to do this thing, right?
Right.
I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who wants to watch the documentary, but you described the process there, which was the beautiful part. Watching all those incredible, all the talent in the room. If a bomb had dropped on that room that night, that would have been the end of pop music, right? Watching that all happen is so skillful, and the way that it's been put together. And they had some good leaders there. So one of the things that was cool about that, and you've alluded to it too, is that when you're in this process, notice that there are gurus, that there are mentors, that are people that are around you, really close in, that you might not recognize for their value, that can help you in that process. And it might be a stranger on the street who says something just one time, one day, and gets you out of your space. Being ultra aware of that is part of the process. Part of the early part of the shadow journey is full of trials and tribulations that soften you up and make you bleed. You carry wounds with you, but then you find the guru who can help take you to the next place, or suggest what you can do with that wound that you might have not have thought of before. And in that place, reach out. If you know somebody who's done the shadow journey a bunch of times, and you haven't done it yet, reach out, because those people are there to help. And that's part of the burden of having done the shadow journey a bunch of times. You realize right away that you have this responsibility to others who want to do it too, who want to come with you, or want to do their own, or in some other way. And that's beautiful work, man. I love doing that work. But you don't advertise for that. You don't market for that. You just keep doing what you're doing. And somebody shows up, hey, Chris, that song that you had really opened me up to something new. tell me more about that. Like, just give me something to hang on to there, because I've got the song, but I want to know more, right? And when those questions come, wow, that's the juice, right? Then you know that whatever you're doing is having an impact. And the people who are asking you are ready to have their own impact in their own way too, which is so cool. So cool to be a part of that ongoing, I don't know, mentoring process, shepherding process.
I love that, Bill. I mean, sorry, I got a lot of ideas just came from that because it's so true, right? So my first thought is absolutely like look out in your everyday life of who you could reach out to that's external to yourself, obviously. And the most simple, maybe not as we think of guru as maybe a like a pretty big deity
Oh
or
yeah, like it's not somebody sitting on a mountaintop. We're talking about like a homeless person might walk up to you and offer you something
you don't
remarkable.
you don't know what it's going to look like, but you'll know what it feels like probably when you're in the interaction, and that can come from anywhere. So yeah, don't have any preconceived ideas what that could look like, because that could look like your Uber driver, homeless person, your grandmother. I don't know. Like the wisdom will come from sometimes the most hilarious sources, and
Oh
that's
sure,
the
like your
best.
child, significant other, or you know, it might even come from a politician you hate.
Totally. Oh, I mean, those are the
Right?
best. Is when you get these gems from sometimes personalities that you almost inherently disagree with on
Yeah,
everything. I love those when those are always throw you for a loop, right? And so there's that idea, which is to be in that open mindedness to see the areas that the people we can connect with to further our learning and our wisdom and our experience. A great example of this would be almost every concert I go to, big, small, medium, whatever. I try to, as a musician, go up to that stage and just I'll take photos and video of everything they have going on. So I look at it as, and I just do this for fun. I've done this since I was a kid. It's not something I'm thinking of doing as a professional, but I look back, I'm like, actually, that's a really good thing to do as a professional because you're researching your industry. And so I would go up to the stage, and if there's any musicians I could speak to in that moment, I would just be like, "Oh man, so I see you're using that pedal," and like blah blah blah. So I would just be picking brains, and I've been doing this my whole life. And I've realized, like in a way, that's just a small example of what Bill's saying with this idea of find your, maybe your daily guru or something, and you just you really start to find those moments where you bring that. I'm always going to, I feel like, bring it back to the inner child stuff. You want to bring that childlike curiosity. Remember those, I was that annoying kid, why
yeah, yeah,
but bring that back, like bring back that why, that kid who keeps asking the why, because that's how we learn. And especially now in this day and age, we have so many ways to learn. It's actually unbelievably amazing how we can access knowledge, especially with the online world. So you can take that even further, audience, and start to look into people that you connect with online and reach out to them. And
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, like buy them a Starbucks gift card, or just like find a way to maybe exchange energetically. Like how you have something of value you could potentially provide, and then, or you just straight up ask them, like, "Hey, could we set up a call? I'd love to pick your brain on A, B, C, and D," and just go from there. But then the last thing I want to lead is then the complete opposite of this, which is also, and this is something I had a pretty profound breakthrough with a couple of weeks back, which is that we are our own guru, and we are our own teacher, and we are our own, everything at the end of the day. And all of the things that we're looking for externally, ultimately, all can be found within ourselves. And I think both are important. I think what Bill's saying is totally important. We definitely want to look outside for those opportunities, because those are great. And those are why we're here in a 3D reality, is to interact with it. So clearly that's important. And to get into the real depths of the consciousness and the metaphysics of it all of the external is a reflection of what's happening internally. So ultimately, you are the guru you're looking for, you are the teacher you're looking for, and to have a balanced perspective on that. It's not, and then so it's not to say to hell with any external stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it's to still come back to that foundational self-love and that foundational self-confidence that you can still always do this for yourself in different ways. And maybe that way is to still reach outward for that, but there's an internal, like, I'm going to find and provide this information for myself because I am my guru. And then that could lead to an external thing. But ultimately, I always want to reinforce for everyone watching and listening that, yeah, you are always the source of all your answers.
I'm right with you on that. Thanks for clarifying that, because you cannot reach in and change anybody. It just doesn't work.
No.
And all of the mythology that we have in the world supports this idea that it has to be individual, it has to be within you. All the external stuff can help influence that, and you can choose to learn from it or not. But the ultimate solution is inside. That's where it is. I can't think of a wisdom tradition that turns away from that. They all point back. And the best person to ask about that would be a Taoist, I think. Like, show me the way that you're walking. And they'd go, well, I can't do that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the way.
Yeah, exactly.
But they know inside exactly the way that they're walking, right? And it's that kind of awareness that we're talking about here. It's the kind of awareness where if you're in the middle of a solo, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to happen next. And it happens. That's the kind of way we're talking about. That it comes from that deep within you. And maybe a solo is the wrong kind of thing to choose for people who aren't like musically inclined or whatever. But if you're watching a band do this, you can see this happen. You can watch a soloist they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they do it perfectly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. That's the kind of internal, how do you want to call it, knowledge? The internal gas that keeps us going. What is it?
Energy.
Fire, energy.
Yeah.
Energy. We can go all spiritual here, but we won't. I was frustrated the other day because great terminology comes up. Like we're all connected, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about connection, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's like, oh man, we had a really good word there for about 30 seconds.
Oh, right. Well, we love to categorize everything, right? And at least English and Western kind of traditions, right?
I wish that I were better at my German heritage, because one of the sad things for me about not knowing German really well is that it has all these feeling words that are so precise that we can't translate into English. Right. And our business here as musicians is all about feeling. And yet we're limited in language to what we can say, that we can express so much better at the piano or with our instrument. And great frustration. But maybe there's still time. I can go back and learn some German.
Yeah, well, what a Dankeschön, Bitteschön, it's all
Duolingo, it's out there. I can go for this.
Prost, cheers. I got the basics, but
you got the basics. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah, I'll be fine. It's true, though language. I know with a lot of indigenous languages too, they refer to time and space completely differently too, just in the language itself. So that, the language you speak really does carve out, we don't think about this much at all, but it really carves out the way we perceive reality, is the way we speak about reality, which of course makes sense. But this is, again, so many parts of our current society and reality that we're kind of blind to and just not aware of, because we're so whipped up to be freaking out about other things that we just don't have that time space to contemplate these, I would say, arguably more important things to be, probably contemplating, but
well, there's whole traditions that you can plug into that are all about contemplation that are very beautiful. We've just given an example of one without even meaning to. You got to serve somebody. Instead of being external, it also means internal.
Yeah.
Are you going to find your internal guru?
Right. You need to serve yourself. How are you serving yourself?
Right. Because at least they tell me, unless you've got it right for yourself, you've got no business trying to make it right for anybody else. And
I don't think a lot.
I heard that the first time.
Yeah. Why is it the people that have done the least amount of work are the ones that want to
the loudest?
Are the loudest. It's just, I love it. The coaching world being rampant with that. It's
my gosh, I'm turning away. So that's, I guess, my insight for 2024 at this moment is to turn away from the coaching world. I respect it.
Yeah,
but I am not a coach.
Yeah, it's a tough word now because it's got, well, so many words have so much baggage nowadays, but that's certainly one of them for me with coaching. That's a whole other podcast, but it does come back to that, looking for all the answers on the external to an extreme, I would say. And a lot of coaches are probably on that side of the spectrum of like maybe not self-empowering people as much, but this is me kind of grasping at straws. I'm not really embedded in that much anymore. So at the very least, I think the point of this whole podcast is to empower our wonderful audience to just find this within yourself and to also look externally balanced. Try both and see what happens with your creative process. Let us know perhaps in the comments if you've got a creative project right now that you're working on, and maybe use us as a litmus test. Leave a comment in this episode, watch another episode a couple days later, a week later or something, and let us know how you're doing on that creative project after a week of perhaps contemplation, reaching out, etc. What does your creative process look like? Everyone's is different, and that's the fun thing too, is all the creatives have a different process, and that's yet another thing we got to embrace, is the individuality of the process. Let's really try our best to not compare to other people's journey, because that's one of the biggest downfalls I usually would experience in the past.
And comparison sucks.
Comparison sucks. I used to be a lot into the self-development thought leaders, but I found that a lot of them, all they would do is just bring a bunch of other successful people, show all the reasons why they're successful, which has value. But my problem was, all I would be doing is comparing myself to these unbelievably successful people, and then comparing it to, and just being like, well, what's the point?
I know. That's exactly why I got turned off by network marketing in my teens. It's like, well, that's great, guys, but I'm not you.
Exactly. And if anyone's like, well, I want a pragmatic resource to help me figure out more of my individual process. Well, for me personally, human design, or maybe Gene Keys, but I lean to human design. It's even a little more masculine, a little more pragmatic, a little more logistical or logical with how it breaks down. And just check that out. You can get free human design charts and readings online very, very easily. And just look at your profile and maybe try to dive into a little bit of what it is telling you, and how you are basically designed to operate in this reality, and how your energy is designed to kind of fluctuate or cycle in this reality. And that could really help you with your creative process too, because again, it's individual. So the better you understand yourself, the better you're going to understand your creative journey, essentially.
I love that. Someday we should talk more about Iron John that Garrett Daly brought up, because there's that whole idea of how men are not initiated the way they used to be anymore. And the work that you're doing is very aligned with this, to help bring men back to a place where we can accept our manhood instead of being compressed into the various different ways that we're supposed to be acting according to the experts, right?
100%.
It hasn't been working. Oh, that's a whole different topic. Thank you, Garrett, by the way, if you're listening, for that, because I love Iron John, and I gifted a copy to my son, and amazing book. And music is the way into consciousness if you're looking for a way.
Yep.
There are others, but that's the one that Chris and I know. And it's a great ride. It's a great ride in there. It can be scary, can be terrifying, can be peaceful, can be sexy, can be, very difficult.
Yeah.
Can be full of tears, and can be full of joy. So, take a ride on the music train and see where it takes you into your own consciousness.
I just feel like that's a song right there.
Right?
Take a ride on the music train.
Oh, yeah. Okay, next week we'll have that one for you.
There you go, everybody.
Fully realized.
I love it. No, I appreciate it, Bill. It's always I always love these discussions, and I think for everyone listening, this was a great talk on the creative process ultimately. So, let us know what is your process. Let us know what are your ups and downs, what are your challenges, and if it's got to do anything with music, I'd love to hear more about your relationship with music. Let us know what you would consider your relationship with music as. I look at my life, and I would say almost there's never real consistency. Yet if I had to look at any aspects that did have the most consistency in my life, music's got to be one of them. Probably the number one in my life. When I say consistent, I just mean I have always been able to turn to music as whatever it needs to be in that moment, and it always delivers. So
well said. Yes, I was thinking that as you were saying that, I'm like trying to come up with what you're going to say. That is it. It's like whatever you need in that moment, music has something for you. It's so profound, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you. That was probably a brainchild of both of us telepathically working there, Bill. So I appreciate it. But it's so true. Like it's so freaking true because that's been it's I've called music my muse, so many times. Music has been my best friend. Music has been my mother, my father. Music has been, my brother, my sister, my unborn child. It's been me. It's been my lover, it's been my wife, it's been my whatever, right? It's been all of these different things. It's been, my depths of my sadness, it's been the depths of my joy, everything else in between. It's literally taken on so many infinite forms in my life, but it's always delivered. It's never not delivered. Whenever I've needed music, I can always lean on it or her. I sometimes feel like music sometimes is this feminine entity because it's such a creative force, right?
Yes.
But anyway, she or it is just one of the most, I would say, and aspects of life I've been able to rely on the most consistently for whatever that thing is that I need. People are amazing, but we're certainly nowhere near perfect. Definitely not me. So I know if I'm not, no one really, we're not, none of us are. So that's the whole point. We're all flawed. So therefore, people are less consistent, for me. And that's okay. I don't hold like a grudge towards people for that. That's just how we are. And, I keep going back to these. I'm like, what has been the most consistent? Music. I can't think of one other thing that's been more. I don't know about you, Bill. What about you?
Is there anything else?
Asking another musician, obviously.
I mean, seriously, but at the end of the day, there's not. It's not about frequency. There's no flow and frequency. It's just static. And
yeah.
But music offers the pathway, the transportation, the inspiration, just all of that stuff. It beats you over the head when you're not doing it right. It's a terrible taskmaster, but all of those aspects of the things that we need for growth are in music.
Yep.
Provided that we know how to recognize them and don't just let it all go by or keep it like wallpaper on the wall. It's all there, just inviting you in.
Well said.
I don't know what else we can say about this.
I think this
we should. This is the final episode of this
forever and ever.
No, it's not really, because Chris has some exciting stuff coming up, and of course we're going to tell you about that, but not now.
Not now, but yeah, I think we got a lot of really great stuff coming up for this.
We do, yeah,
and so much more that we can dive into. And also, this is a beautiful little kind of bow to leave it on today. So, I mean, I think that's a great place to leave it, Bill. This is just the music. I think we just had a nice love affair with music right now, and just I think it's great to just take a moment and acknowledge. I mean, certainly for me, I mean, music I can literally say has saved my life many times, probably too many to count at this point. And it's also it's just been everything that I've ever needed at any point. Period. Thanks, music.
Period. End of story. Thanks, music. Chris, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, brother. What a great thing to be able to hang out and do this.
Yeah.
I know this is very selfish. Audience, as you're listening to this, Chris and I do this because we love to talk about this stuff. Yeah. So if you're listening in on our conversation, want to throw in on it, tell me how crazy I am. You won't be the first.
Love it.
I welcome those comments.
Me
Fire
too.
away.
Fire away.
But brother, this is great. And thanks for taking the time together and throwing our ideas around. And worshiping at the well of music. How about that?
Can't go wrong with that, Bill. So thank you. I appreciate it. And everyone watching and listening, we appreciate you. And thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of good old discussions of music, healing, and consciousness.
Aho, everybody.
Aho.
Be well.